I heard something crazy that night. My best friend's husband confessed what I never expected. Before we begin, if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss these emotionally powerful real-life stories. And if this grips you, give it a thumbs up and share it. Your support truly matters. Now, let's get into what I heard that night. My name is Sophia. I'm 32 years old, and 6 weeks ago I heard something I was never supposed to hear. Something that changed everything about how I see myself, my best friend, and the careful boundaries I'd spent years maintaining. Before that night, I thought I understood the dynamics of my relationships, thought I knew where I stood with everyone in my life, thought the feelings I'd been carefully suppressing were mine alone, a secret I'd successfully kept from everyone, including the person those feelings were about. I was wrong about all of it. And the way I discovered how wrong I was makes everything that's happened since even more complicated, even more impossible to navigate. My best friend Anna and I have been close for almost a decade. We met at 23, when we were both working entry-level jobs at the same marketing firm, bonded over shared frustrations with our bosses, and a similar sense of humor that made 12-hour workdays bearable. Over the years, we'd been through everything together: career changes, family drama, terrible relationships that needed to end, and wonderful relationships that ended anyway. Anna was the sister I'd chosen, the person who knew my history and my fears and loved me despite all my flaws and complications. I trusted her completely, valued her friendship more than almost any other relationship in my life. Anna married James 4 years ago after dating him for 3 years. James was a software engineer, brilliant and quiet in ways that balanced Anna's more extroverted personality. Where she was impulsive and emotional, James was methodical and calm. Where she made decisions based on instinct, James approached everything analytically. They complemented each other perfectly, and I'd been genuinely happy at their wedding, standing as maid of honor and watching two people I cared about promise forever to each other. I'd meant every word of my toast about how perfect they were together, how James grounded Anna in ways she needed, how their relationship was proof that opposites really could attract and create something beautiful. James had always been neutral to me, not someone I disliked, but not someone I thought about independently of his relationship to Anna. He was Anna's James, a peripheral figure in my life who existed primarily as an extension of my friendship with her, polite but distant, present at social gatherings but never someone I'd have sought out for one-on-one interaction. We'd exchange pleasantries at dinners and parties, have occasional surface-level conversations about his work or current events, but nothing deeper. Nothing that suggested any particular connection beyond our mutual connection to Anna. Except that wasn't entirely true, and I'd been lying to myself about it for over a year. The truth was that somewhere around 18 months ago, I'd started noticing James in ways I absolutely should not have been noticing him. Started paying attention when he talked at dinner parties. Started feeling disappointed when he couldn't make it to group hangouts. Started thinking about him at inappropriate times. When I was falling asleep, when I was supposed to be working, during quiet moments when my mind would wander. I'd developed feelings. Real, undeniable feelings for my best friend's husband. Feelings I was deeply ashamed of and had been working desperately to suppress because they threatened everything I valued about my relationship with Anna. I'd never acted on these feelings. Never flirted with James or tried to create opportunities to be alone with him. Never given any indication that I saw him as anything other than Anna's husband. I'd been so careful to maintain appropriate boundaries, to keep my inappropriate attraction completely internal where it couldn't hurt anyone, and I'd convinced myself I was successfully managing the situation, that as long as James never knew how I felt, as long as I never acted on it, no real harm was being done, that I could carry these feelings privately while maintaining my friendship with Anna and everyone's dignity intact. 6 weeks ago, that carefully constructed strategy fell apart. It was a Saturday evening in late October. Anna had invited me over for dinner. Nothing formal, just the three of us having pizza and wine like we'd done countless times before. I arrived around 7. Anna greeted me with a hug, and we settled in the living room with drinks while James ordered food. The evening started normally. Easy conversation, comfortable silence, the kind of effortless interaction that comes from years of friendship. But about an hour in, Anna's phone rang. It was her mother, calling about some family crisis that needed Anna's immediate attention and advice. Anna apologized, said this might take a while, asked if I minded if she took the call in the bedroom where it would be quieter. I told her it was fine. James and I could entertain ourselves until she was done. Anna disappeared into the bedroom, closing the door behind her, leaving James and I alone in the living room, which wasn't unusual. I'd been alone with James dozens of times over the years. Brief moments while Anna was in another room, occasional errands where Anna sent me to pick something up from him, situations that had never felt significant or charged with meaning. But that night felt different. James seemed restless, more tense than usual. He kept checking his phone, then putting it down, picking up his beer, taking a sip, setting it back down, making small talk that felt forced rather than natural. I asked if everything was okay, if work was stressing him out. James said work was fine, everything was fine, but he said it in a way that made it clear everything was definitely not fine. We sat in uncomfortable silence for a few minutes. I could hear Anna's voice from the bedroom, muffled but clearly engaged in an intense conversation with her mother. James stood up abruptly, said he needed to make a phone call, asked if I minded if he stepped into his home office for a few minutes. I said of course not, told him to take his time. James disappeared down the hallway toward his office. I heard the door close, and then I did something I'm still not sure I can justify. Something that changed everything. I needed to use the bathroom. Their apartment had two, one attached to the master bedroom where Anna was on the phone, and one in the hallway near James's office. I walked down the hallway quietly, not wanting to disturb either of their conversations. But as I approached the bathroom, I heard James's voice through his office door. He was on the phone, his voice low but audible through the not-quite-closed door, and he was saying my name. I should have kept walking, should have gone to the bathroom and returned to the living room and pretended I'd heard nothing, should have respected his privacy and not eavesdropped on a conversation that clearly wasn't meant for my ears. But I froze. Because hearing your name spoken by someone in a private conversation is like a magnet. It pulls your attention completely, makes it almost impossible to walk away without knowing the context. So I stood there in the hallway, just outside James's office door, and I listened, and what I heard made my entire world tilt on its axis. James was talking to someone. I later learned it was his brother Mark, who lived across the country and was one of the few people James confided in about personal matters. And James was confessing feelings he'd been hiding, feelings about me. I can't keep doing this, James was saying, his voice strained in a way I'd never heard before. I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way. It's killing me, Mark. Every time she's here, every time I see her, it gets harder. There was a pause while Mark responded. Then James continued. Of course I know it's wrong. She's Anna's best friend. Nothing can happen. Nothing will happen. But that doesn't change what I feel, doesn't make me stop thinking about Sophia constantly, doesn't make me stop wondering what it would be like if circumstances were different. My heart stopped. Actually stopped for what felt like several beats before starting again irregularly. James had feelings for me, had been hiding them the same way I'd been hiding mine, had been thinking about me, struggling with attraction he knew was inappropriate, carrying a secret that mirrored my own. I see her. And I want things I have no right to want, James was saying. I want to talk to her for hours about everything and nothing. I want to know what she thinks about things that have nothing to do with Anna or our social circle. I want to be the person she calls when something good or bad happens. I want things that aren't mine to want, because she belongs in Anna's world, not mine. There was another pause, longer this time. When James spoke again, his voice was quieter, almost defeated. I love Anna. That's what makes this so impossible. I genuinely love my wife. Our marriage is good, we're happy, but there's this other thing, this awareness of Sophia that exists alongside my love for Anna rather than replacing it, and I don't know what to do with that. Don't know how to make it go away when she's in my life constantly through Anna. I heard him take a breath that sounded almost like a sob. Tonight she's here and I'm hiding in my office because being in the same room with her while knowing I can never have her feels like torture. And I hate myself for feeling this way. Hate that I'm the kind of person who developed feelings for his wife's best friend. Hate that I'm even saying this out loud to you instead of taking it to my grave the way I should. Mark must have said something because James laughed bitterly. No, I can't tell her. Are you insane? Can you imagine? Hey, Sophia. I know you're my wife's best friend, and you see me as nothing more than Anna's husband, but I've been harboring feelings for you for over a year. That would destroy everything. Would destroy my marriage. Would destroy Anna's friendship with Sophia. Would make me the villain who ruined 3 lives because I couldn't control inappropriate attraction. My hands were shaking. My legs felt weak. I reached out to steady myself against the wall, trying to process what I was hearing. James had feelings for me, had been hiding them for over a year, the same timeline as my own hidden feelings for him, had been struggling with the same guilt and shame and impossible desire that I'd been carrying, had been carefully maintaining appropriate boundaries while internally wanting things he knew he couldn't have. I just needed to tell someone, James continued. Needed to say it out loud to another human being before I went crazy keeping it inside. But nothing's going to happen. I'll keep being Anna's husband and Sophia's friend by extension, and I'll carry these feelings until they fade, or until I get so good at suppressing them that they might as well not exist. There was a final pause. Then James said goodbye to his brother, and I heard movement that suggested he was about to end the call. I moved quickly and quietly back down the hallway, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure everyone in the apartment could hear it. I made it to the living room just as James emerged from his office. Our eyes met, and I saw him trying to read my expression, trying to determine if I'd heard anything. I kept my face carefully neutral, smiled like nothing had changed, asked if everything was okay with his call. James said it was fine, just his brother checking in. Everything was normal, except nothing was normal. Nothing would ever be normal again. Anna emerged from the bedroom about 10 minutes later, apologizing for the long call, explaining some complicated family situation that had required her mediation. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I went through the motions of normal conversation, laughed at appropriate times, participated in discussions about work and current events. But my mind was replaying James's confession on a loop, analyzing every word, trying to understand what it meant, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do with this information I'd never been meant to have. I left earlier than usual, claiming tiredness. Anna hugged me goodbye. James waved from across the room, his expression carefully neutral in a way that now made complete sense given what I knew. I drove home in a daze and spent the entire night staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep, unable to stop thinking about what I'd heard. James had feelings for me. The attraction I'd been certain was one-sided, the desire I'd been carrying as a shameful secret, was actually mutual. James felt what I felt, wanted what I wanted, was struggling with the same impossible situation I'd been struggling with. And knowing that changed everything. Because before, when I'd thought my feelings were one-sided, they'd been painful but manageable. Unrequited attraction is something you can eventually move past. You mourn what you can't have, and then you let it go, because there's no possibility, no hope, no reason to keep holding on to feelings that lead nowhere. But mutual attraction is different. Mutual attraction is dangerous. Because it's not just about your own feelings anymore. It's about knowing another person feels the same way. About knowing that the thing you want is something someone else wants too. About possibility existing where you'd convinced yourself none existed. And possibility, even when you know you can't act on it, changes how you experience desire, makes it harder to suppress, makes it more persistent, makes it transform from manageable discomfort into something that demands attention and decision and action. The next few weeks were the most difficult of my life. I kept replaying James's confession, analyzing every interaction we'd had over the past year through this new lens. All those times I'd thought I was the only one struggling, James had been struggling too. All those moments where I'd been hyper-aware of his presence, he'd been equally aware of mine. All the careful distance we'd maintained, that had been both of us working hard to protect Anna and maintain boundaries rather than just me restraining myself. Knowing that James shared my feelings should have made things better. At least I wasn't alone in this impossible situation. But it actually made everything worse, because now I knew the attraction was mutual. Now I knew that if circumstances were different, if James weren't married to Anna, if I weren't Anna's best friend, something could happen between us. The possibility existed, And knowing possibility exists makes it infinitely harder to resign yourself to impossibility. I started avoiding them, started declining invitations to dinner or drinks, started making excuses about being busy with work, started creating distance that was noticeable enough that Anna commented on it. She called multiple times asking if something was wrong, if she'd done something to upset me, if there were problems in my life I wasn't sharing. And I lied, told her everything was fine, that I was just stressed with work, that I wasn't avoiding her, just genuinely overwhelmed. The lies felt like betrayal. But the truth, that I'd overheard her husband confessing feelings for me, that those feelings were mutual, that I was staying away because I didn't trust myself around James now that I knew he wanted me to, would destroy her, would destroy our friendship, would destroy her marriage even though neither James nor I had actually done anything wrong. I've been in therapy for a month now, trying to process this situation, trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with knowledge I was never meant to have. My therapist asks if I regret eavesdropping, if I wish I'd walked past James's office without hearing his confession. And honestly, I don't know. Part of me wishes I'd never heard it. Wishes I could go back to thinking my feelings were one-sided, to carrying my secret alone without the complication of knowing James carries the same secret. But another part of me is almost relieved, because at least now I know I'm not crazy. The tension I'd been feeling between us wasn't imaginary. The awareness wasn't one-sided. The careful distance we'd been maintaining was something we'd both been working at. There's a strange validation in knowing your perceptions were accurate, even when what you perceived is something you wished didn't exist. My therapist says I'm at a crossroads, that I have to decide what to do with this knowledge. The options aren't good. I could pretend I never heard anything, could continue suppressing my feelings and maintaining distance while carrying the additional burden of knowing James feels the same way. I could confess to Anna that I overheard her husband's conversation, could come clean about my own feelings, could let her decide what happens to her marriage and our friendship with full knowledge of the situation. I could confront James directly, could acknowledge that I overheard his confession and that my feelings are mutual, could try to have an honest conversation about what we do with this mutual but impossible attraction, or I could simply fade out of their lives entirely, could quietly end my friendship with Anna without explanation, could remove myself from a situation that's become too complicated and painful to navigate. Every option hurts someone. Every option involves loss. And I still haven't decided which form of pain and loss is the one I can live with. What I do know is that hearing James confess feelings he never should have had, feelings that mirrored my own so completely it was almost eerie, awakened something in me. Not new desire. I'd already wanted James before that night, but something else. Some recognition that the boundaries I'd considered absolute were actually more fragile than I'd believed. That the impossible might not be as impossible as I'd convinced myself. That mutual attraction has a power and pull that one-sided attraction doesn't possess. I didn't ask for this awakening. Didn't want to know James felt what I felt. Didn't want the complication of mutual acknowledged desire even if that acknowledgement happened through eavesdropping rather than direct communication. But I know now. And you can't unknow things. Can't unhear confessions that were never meant for your ears. Can't suppress awareness once it's been awakened. That night didn't destroy anything out loud. No confrontations happened. No lines were explicitly crossed. Anna still has no idea that both her husband and her best friend are harboring feelings for each other. But inside me, everything cracked open. The careful control I'd maintained over my feelings shattered. The certainty that nothing could ever happen dissolved. The boundaries I'd thought were fixed revealed themselves as permeable and fragile. And I don't know how to rebuild them. Don't know how to put the knowledge back in the box. Don't know how to return to seeing James as just Anna's husband, when I now know he sees me as something more. Don't know how to maintain my friendship with Anna while carrying the weight of what I know about her husband's feelings and my own. 6 weeks. It's been 6 weeks since that night. 6 weeks of carrying this knowledge. 6 weeks of agonizing over what to do. 6 weeks of therapist appointments and sleepless nights and endless internal debates about the right course of action. And I'm no closer to an answer than I was the night I stood in that hallway and heard James confess what I never expected. All I know is that some confessions aren't meant to be heard. Some knowledge changes you in ways you can't predict or control. Some moments of accidental eavesdropping can shift your entire understanding of yourself and the people around you. I heard something crazy that night, something that confirmed my worst fears and my deepest hopes simultaneously, something that made the impossible feel suddenly, terrifyingly possible. And nothing, not inside me, not in how I see James, not in how I navigate my relationship with Anna, will ever be the same again. The end.